Okay, so I'm going to move on to the second of the two deconstructions that I'm doing here for you this afternoon in sunny Amsterdam. And I'm moving on to Disclosure's You and Me. And you can definitely say it's been a pretty big year for this, like a massive year for Disclosure. And also for the sort of sound that they've sort of spearheaded from a pop point of view, really, which is the kind of deep house thing that's been absolutely massive this year again. And kind of what I like about what they've done is they've taken the kind of garage thing, very much the late 90s kind of garage sound, and married it to the deep house thing, and then just put this pop sensibility to it that I think is absolutely killer and works really, really, really well. So, you know, what I've done in breaking this down, you know, as I did before with the Ben Pierce, it's all loaded up here and you can see the track at the top. So I can play this through. You know, and sort of briefly on the structure of this for me, it's incredibly simple. You know, I've talked about simplicity again with the Ben Pierce track, but they've kept it stripped back. You know, there's a definite lesson to be learnt in here. Loads of room for the vocal, we've got a nice little build. There's absolutely no fat on this at all. Killer vocal performance. You know, and it's that word space again, and I keep saying this, but, you know, they've left room, massively left room for the vocal to sit there and become the focal point. You know, deep house stabs, very kind of housey flavour, but with those sort of skippy, shuffled sort of garage beats, it's a really cool combination. You know, and you know, I've sort of said the sort of structure of this arrangement is just so tight. 3.5 minutes. Just over. So please don't let go. Into the kind of chorus section we go. Now we'll look at these in a minute, but these kind of classic organ basses again here. It's a different combination of stabs, using sawtooth, using square waves. This is all good stuff. And essentially, what you've got a kind of an intro section here, followed by a chorus, and then the intro section again, and then the chorus. You know, it doesn't get much more simple than that. But you know, you'll be humming this for weeks, which I think is always the acid test of this sort of pop sound. So then we kind of go to the last section here. So let's have a kind of look at how I've done it. Well, to start with, I've gone for my classic. I've gone for Ultra Beat, and I've got all of my drums loaded up into an Ultra Beat here. Tell you what we'll do, let me just move some of this around and we'll go and take a look at the drums themselves. So what I've got here is I've got this drum bus, you know, classic sidechain. Here we go. Okay, so all kind of sample based on this one, really. I think that, especially around the sort of the snare sound, it's a very classic sort of, not quite piccolo-y, but very sort of high tuned. Created it all within Ultra Beat itself and then sort of dragged it in. You can see the sort of drum structure arrangement that I've got going on here. Now, one of the things I always do in this is sort of numbered it up. So you can see where the little fill sections are coming in. Little bits dropping out. You know, classic stuff there again. Snare with a clap laying underneath it just to give it that little bit of fullness. Especially that's the thing with a lot of those high-pitched snares. Going to be quite a bit of a gap kind of underneath frequency rise. So I've got this little fella, you know, the 909. I mean, a lot of their drum sounds are all based around a kind of 909. Again, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They've kind of kept with the kind of the classics. I think that works really well. Now, let's bring this back. And I'm just going to come in onto this bass stuff here, I think. So let's just kind of solo this up. Well, I'll solo it up in a minute, and I'm just going to loop it round. So let me just take this down. Right, you can hear them coming in. I'm going to mute out all the kind of effects and stuff. So what we've got here is a layered bass. And I've got kind of a sub-layer sitting underneath, which is the old EXS24, the old workhorse, just sitting there, providing me with a subline. You know, that's all that's kind of doing. And then I've used, you know, Logic 10. I've used the vintage B3 to provide the kind of the organ bass. You know, we've got a very basic form of additive synthesis here, really, with the stops allowing me to add extra harmonics, as you can hear if I drag that one up, and it gets all a bit seaside there, but you know, you can kind of hear how that works. So if we go through into sort of the main section now, you know, it's just so, I keep saying it again, it's so simple. Incredibly hooky. So, that's the kind of the beats and the bass all sorted out. So let's go and have a look at some of the other sounds that we've got in here. Well, the main one in here, I think, if we go back to this, there's this kind of intro stab. Sort of quite deep, you know, the deep house kind of vibe on it. So what I've done with that is I've made use of an ES2. We can have a look at this. There's quite a few plugins on this, but that's really more about how I wanted to kind of filter it. What I've got, here we go. So the ES2, Sawteeth, you know, bit of detuning on them, just to sort of fatten it up. Again, keeping it really simple. We've then followed that by stereo delay, just to give it a bit of bounce. And then the Space Designer, which is kind of giving it the reverb, which is smoothing it all out, so it's not too staccato. And then there's a couple of auto filters, one of which is a low pass, which is allowing the sound to build. Got a compressor doing a bit of side chaining here. You can see the sort of the classic sort of house stuff, really. And then afterwards, following that with a high pass filter. It's quite a nice combination, this. Now I'm using the auto filters rather than the ES2 filter because I wanted to have the effects filtering as well. You can very much hear that coming in now. And then it's all automated, you know, using standard Logic automation, really. So what we've got there is you can see the auto filter coming up, and there's a couple of those on there. Now let's go into the kind of the main bit here, because again, what they do is strip it right back. Here we go. I've kind of kept this fairly dry. I mean, I've got a reverb sitting across my whole drum bus, you know. There it is. Nice and short, but I'm leaving the basses really dry. We've got the classic pop string. You know, strings adding that touch of class. And then there's a square wave stab going on here. Sort of augment what the bass is doing. Okay, I kind of kept it pretty dry. Turn it up a little bit, actually. You know, the kind of the fairy dust, those sort of final production techniques that you do as you kind of mix it through, kind of would add that kind of final sheen. And what I've done for this, for the purpose of the demonstration here, really, just use a sort of standard sort of mastering chain on there, like that. And then, kind of what's left? Well, we've got these three sort of different sort of stab sounds. You know, the EF1, one of the unsung heroes of Logic, been with us for a long time, but it's a great little FM synth. You know, just providing just a little flavour in the background. Now we've got three of them. There's a little wibble here, which is a kind of a LFO noise sort of style sound, like that. Just a bit of white noise, and then that's kind of just been filtered with LFO and envelope onto the filters. And then there's another little stab here. So the three all kind of work together, and you can hear, probably make out this sort of panning on them, kind of keeping everything out of the way. Let's just bring these back in. can kind of hear is and then you can see, as I said on the drums, I've just added little fills. Essentially, that same thing again, bringing the track into the arrangement, all the tempo's locked, and it speaks to me. I can see where things are dropping, I can see where things are coming in. I can, you know, pretty much, it's a great way of learning how sort of good arrangements are done. And, you know, it's been done 100% with Logic plugins, you know. So that's one of those things, you know, you can do it with the basics if you need to. Definitely prefer to use less plugins rather than have millions on the computer. Kind of focusing on making those sounds good. So that's kind of my my attempt at putting this Disclosure track together. If you've got any questions, you know, anything you want to ask me about how this has been done, then now's a good time. So yeah, let's open the floor up, and any questions from any of you out there.
Every 2 weeks in the course, an assignment is set.
So once I've done my assignment, which is essentially a track, I upload it for my tutor to download, and he sends me back a DVR, which is a direct video response.
It's a video produced by your tutor that is sent to you personally every couple of weeks while you're studying, giving you immediate feedback on your production.
It's something that enables the students to have a one-to-one connection with their tutor.
You see all of the mouse movements and any parameter changes made by your tutor. It's kind of like sitting in the studio over their shoulder, watching what they're doing whilst they work.
And I think this kind of steel can sound is brilliant. I mean, that's a real kind of hook of the track, this. Maybe let's just try recording something in. The response that the tutor gives is completely tailored to the student's style of music or the level that they're at as well. So it might be nice to spice up this drum track by adding a delay, and you can see I've put one here in the return of the drum rack, and if we just apply that to the clap now, you see it has a really nice effect.
If you want to check out the whole range of online courses, go to pointblankonline.net.